in a while. How many people, this is their first conference since the whole deal? Oh, yeah, you're okay, but wasn't in the middle a little bit. Okay, so first, just want Kobe, I'm Brett Waters. I'm co-chair with Kobe Nisam. We just wanted to welcome everyone here. First, thank a few people. First, the program committee members. We worked really hard to get it through and also to get things right. We found, really scrutinized for the errors, found some errors in papers and other conferences, as well as TCC. so we went above and beyond in a few cases. Also, we want to thank Alessandra for putting this all together so we could actually be here. And just before I hand things off to her, I'm really glad we were able to do this in person. Like, this isn't the same as a 200-person conference, but I do think, I look around some of the people like Tal, Alessandra, Danielle that I know, and I think the reason, or Shai, that I know them is because we're in conferences together, right? Like, I can't imagine 7 years ago, I'd be like, hey, you want to go to a private Zoom room and see if we have something in common? Let's see how that works. And I feel bad for the people who are the first, second, third year students who need to do, who this is their main mechanism right now. Hopefully I'll actually get to know, I don't know most of the people in here, but hopefully we'll get to know them a little bit better. Okay, so let's go for it. Oh.
All right, guys, let me open up my slides. I'll share the screen. Am I sharing the right? Hi, there's me. Sorry, guys, I'm not sure which screen I'm supposed to share. I would say. This one. All right. Hi. Kevin, are you guys seeing the right slides? Are you seeing the presentation?
Yes, we are.
Okay, perfect. You are not seeing this here. That's good. Good. Let's see why we're not seeing this on the screen. Can somebody run up to? All right, guys, this is what's gonna happen. Give me 1 second. I just need to mirror. Thanks. All right, guys. Sorry. So welcome to the Hunt Library. I hope you like this beautiful space. A few remarks. Of course, we are all happy that you're here, and I would like you to enjoy Raleigh. This is fall time, so I hope you take the opportunity. There is a lake across the street, so whenever you have time, just feel free to walk. Just 2 minutes walk to the lake. For the in-person TCC, just a reminder, everything is going to be here in this room. So even the online sections, we are going to be here and looking at Zoom screen. For the virtual edition, it's as usual, you just connect to the program from the website. What to do in Raleigh?
Excuse me, can I interrupt for a moment? You really should go to the program and then click on the join the conference button.
It doesn't really work from the room here. How do we find it?
Yes, actually, that's good. It was brought up to our attention that for some reason, NC State guessed this Wi-Fi does not allow you to go to the program. However, it should be fine because you're going to be able to watch the conference from here. So you don't need to connect to Zoom to see here, right? So likely this is only a problem for us, but we are here. And as Kevin was suggesting, if you go to the program on the website, you should click join the conference. Okay, so that's if you are remote. So what to do in Raleigh? You must have received an email from me with ideas and suggestions, so please read that. But if you still have questions, just ask me. Then I would like to thank a lot of people, and there's a lot of work behind the conference, a lot of people that help. Mostly the people I think the most were Shai, Brian, Douglas, and Brad, who helped with a few organizational details. And then big thanks to our sponsors. There was a lot of uncertainty around whether this conference was going to happen till the very end, actually. So having the sponsor was actually a big help. So thank you so much. And that's it. Hope you guys enjoy the conference. And at any point, if you are tired of being inside with your mask, please feel free to go outside. There is a tent just for you. There are chairs and tables, so you can just sit there and work there. Okay. All right. So we're ready to start with the first session. And the first speaker.
Yeah.
So that I set up the. Okay, I'll set up the presentation.
Okay, welcome everybody to the first session on CC 2021. The first speaker will be Zoe.
And the title is simple.
Yeah, the title of the talk is Simple Construction from non-regular one-way functions and this one everything down.
Cool. Thanks. This talk is about simple constructions from non-regular one-way functions. So as we all know, one-way functions are the minimal assumption for complexity-based crypto. And amazingly, it suffices to construct many useful primitives, including pseudo-random generators, encryption, pseudo-random functions, zero-knowledge proofs, and more. Yet, the efficiency of these constructions sometimes do not allow us to implement them in practice. And when we're considering the efficiency of these primitives, we usually consider the one to minimize the seed or the key length, the number of calls to the one-way function, and if we can, we want to make the call to be non-adaptive. In this work, we are focusing on PRGs and universal one-way hash function constructions, for which there are gaps between the best lower and upper bounds. And in this talk, I'm going to focus on PRGs construction. So let's start with the state-of-the-art constructions. So the efficiency of PRGs constructions may be dependent on the exact assumption we have on the structure of the one-way function. For example, if we assume that the function is a permutation, we can use the Goldreich-Levin hardcore predicate in order to construct PRG with one call and linear sequence.
Excuse me, the slides are not changing. You're not sharing properly.
Share the screen.
Share the desktop or just the video.
So for now, I'll just fix this quick and then we'll do it. Is it better now? Changing?
Yeah, yeah. no,
Yes.
Yes, that's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Sorry. So if you assume the function is a permutation, we can use Godel-Levin in order to construct PRG with one call to the value function and linear seedless. If we only assume that the function is regular, meaning that every image has the same number of images, then we can use similar construction and get similar parameters. But in order to implement this construction, we need to know the regularity parameter, or the number of images that every image has. And if we do not know this regularity parameter, we say that the function is non-regular. In this case, the best construction we have uses linear number of adaptive calls and linear seed length. This is due to work of Eichner, Hartnick, and Reingold, and Yuli and Ben. Lastly, Astad, Pagliazzo, Levin, and Luby showed that we can use any one-way function in order to construct PRG. And the parameters were improved by Eichner, Reingold, and Badan and Zeng, up to n cube calls and n cube seed length in the case that the calls are adaptive, or n to the fourth seed length in the case that the calls are non-adaptive. For lower bound, we have a linear lower bound on the number of calls for any PRG construction. And this should be compared with the best upper bound we have, which is n cube. However, this lower bound also, if you assume a stronger assumption on the one-way function, that is that the function is non-regular. And in this case, we know that the construction is tight as it matches the best upper bound we have that uses linear calls, but this upper bound uses adaptive calls. So we can ask, is this adaptivity necessary? Or in other words, can we construct a PRG from a non-regular one-way function that uses linear number of non-adaptive calls? And in this work, we are giving a positive answer to this question by showing the non-adaptive constructions of both PRGs and universal one-way hash functions from non-regular one-way functions. The constructions are tight with respect to the number of calls, and they are relatively simple, but the uses a long seed or key length. The seed of the PRG is going to be n squared, which should be compared with linear seed in the adaptive construction. So let me just conclude with the construction. So let f be an non-regular one-way function, and let h be a two universal family from 2n bits to n plus log n bits. And we need additional properties from this family, but I'm going to ignore it. So the PRG gets as input a description of a hash function h, and t inputs to the one-way function x1 to xt, and it outputs h. And for every pair of inputs xi and xi plus 1, its output age applied to xi and f of xi plus 1. Now there are t calls to the value functions, and while we are getting as input t blocks of n bits each, we are only outputting t minus 1 blocks of n plus log n bits each. This is the reason we need to take t to be large enough, larger than n over log n, which is tight with the lower bound. The second construction we have is a universal one-way hash function. In order to construct this primitive, it is enough to construct a function that is shrinking and for which it is hard to find a collision for a random input. And our construction for universal one-way hash function is very similar to the PRG one. So now let h be a two universal family from 2n bits to n minus log n bits. And the construction is the same, except that we are now outputting also f of x1 at the beginning of the output, and the last input xt at the end. So to conclude, we presented a non-adaptive construction of PRGs and universal one-way hash function from non-regular one-way functions, which are tight with respect to the number of calls. And we have a few open questions. The first is, can we use similar idea to generalize it to an arbitrary one-way function? The second is if this input length is optimal, and the third is to find better low bounds. So thanks.
This paper is a winner of the best young research award, so congratulations. Yes, there's something.
I guess it's more like a clarification. So are you trading the number of queries with the classification?
Yeah, so the size of the seed is.
Please repeat the questions so that the audience can hear them.
The question was if we are trading the size of the seed with the number of rows. So we don't know that this is tight. We don't know that we cannot make the seed smaller, but we believe that it is not reasonable. Yeah, and the seed length is larger than another construction.
More questions? So one question of my own, if you assume exponential hardness, then all these questions become easy, like is there or anything is open in this regime?
I'm not sure. Not familiar.
Okay, so let's thank Noam again.
No, I'm trying to share also with them. You guys remember how the screen is shown? Sorry guys. Okay.
That looks good for us on Zoom.
Okay, great. So the next talk is titled BKW Mitsuye, New Algorithms for LLM in Sparse Parties by Danda Consuel, Eugene Gong, Hunter Kippen, and Arya Shabdeldi, and Arya is giving
Thanks for the introduction. So this is a joint work, as it was said, with my advisor, Danda Consuel, Eugene, and Hunter. So let's remind you quickly about the learning and activity noise prop. Let me try to move this. Yeah. So the oracle has a secret which has n coordinate, and each time we call an oracle a uniformly random x, a sample, and we compute the inner product of the example X with the secret S, and we either return the result with probability 1 minus theta, or we flip the inner product and return that with probability theta. So the best algorithm to recover secret S is by Bloom-Colley. So BKW runs in time to be n over log n and needs the same number of samples. And without loss of generality, we can assume that the secret key is drawn from the same distribution as the noise. So in this work, we consider LPN with sparse secret, meaning that K, which is sparsity of the secret, is much less than eta times n. And we consider three scenarios, one for a constant noise rate, which we're going to look briefly, the low noise setting, and application of other transfer function. For the last two, please refer to the paper. So for the constant noise rate, for the sparsity K equal n over log raised to the power of 1 plus 1 over C. For a certain range of C, the runtime of our algorithm is like this. And we compared it with brute force and BKW, and we showed that the runtime is symptotically faster than the exponent. So to give you an idea of a range of K can be much smaller than n over log n and much bigger than n over log squared n. So for the low noise setting, I'll just here give you an example of the parameter for the full ranges of the parameter. Please refer to the paper. So the sparsity can be square root of n over log n, and the noise rate can be log n over the square root of n. And we compare the runtime of our algorithm with brute force and lucky brute force. And for the lucky brute force also, please refer to the paper for the actual definition. So how we can recover secrets? So take the function that only returns the inner product of X and S. If the samples are not from the uniform distribution, so they are 0 with probability 1.5 plus 0 over 2, then the Fourier coefficient is going to be 0 for the coordinate that the secret is 0, and it's going to be 1 for other coordinates. So the learning algorithm, all it needs to do is distinguish between these two cases. And remember that the samples are noisy, so we really have to distinguish between 0 and epsilon. So the goal is to construct this p-bias sample. So the goal is really to construct this oracle, but we all have. The only access that we have is to this LPN oracle. So in the next slide, I'll show you the construction of how we did it for the constant noise rate. So each time we call an oracle, an index set called R is sample. So basically, we need to we selected a subset of coordinates and we feed it into the BKWR algorithm. So BKWR algorithm is essentially similar to the BKW, restricted to the set R. All it does is zero out the coordinates. And in the paper, we showed that the samples outputted from this construction is essentially similar to the sample outputted from the p-bias distribution. And later we'll just we'll just construct the Fourier coefficient. We want to distinguish between 0 and 1 cases. So I left out many details, and especially for the low noise case. So please refer to the paper for the rest of the results. Thanks.
Thanks, Arya. Any questions? Okay, so I have a quick question. Can you say anything about the impact of this on applications of LPN? Like, are you aware of any applications that are affected by this result?
So the motivation was for the cases where we can recover the secret from side channel, but we don't know all the coordinates. So what we can do is reconstruct the case where, so from that we can construct something which the secret looks sparse, and that was the one motivation. But we don't have any concrete numbers, so if you're doing the same, how to do better, but not in a concrete case.
Okay, any other question? Okay, if not, then let's thank again. And the next talk is happening virtually. So Roman is setting up. Okay, so the next talk is titled Towards Site Adaptive Security of Non-Interactive Key Exchange by Julia Nielsen, Dennis Hofheinz, Lisa Cole, and Roman Langware. And Roman will give it.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the introduction. So I will start with a brief definition of what non-interactive key exchange, or for short, NIKE, is. So there's this keychain algorithm that everybody can use to generate a public secret key pair. And then we assume a public key infrastructure, so everybody gets an authenticated copy of every other's public key. And then every user can generate a shared key using his own secret key and the public key of someone else. So when Alice can do this with her secret key and Bob's public key, and Bob with his secret key and Alice's public key, and then they should get the same secret, or the same shared key. The security notion we consider works as follows. An adversary can adaptively query several oracles. And the first oracle is to create a new user. Whenever he does this, he gets their public key. The second oracle is to corrupt users. When he does this, he also sees the secret key of this user. Then he can reveal shared keys between users. And finally, he can get challenged on users. That means he gets the shared key between them, or just a random value. And he has to distinguish between these two variants. And of course, he can do this only when both users are uncorrupted and he has not revealed the shared key between them. Okay, and second, let me briefly explain what we mean with tight security. So when we want to prove that the NIKE is secure, we give a reduction to some underlying assumption. And that guarantees that when we can break our scheme with probability epsilon using some resources rho, we can break the underlying assumption for a fair comparison with approximately the same resources with some probability epsilon divided by L. And this L is called the security loss. And the larger L is, the larger we have to select our security parameter to achieve a certain concrete level of security, which means our scheme gets less efficient. So we want to get L as small as possible. And this is basically captured by tightness. More concretely, this means that L does not depend on the adversary. In particular for NIKE, this means that it does not grow with the number of users the adversary registers. And yeah, it seems quite hard for NIKE to get tight security. So, well, the most famous NIKE definitely is the Diffie-Hellman NIKE. But in this setting with multiple users, this has a security loss of n squared. And there's also a work that shows that the security loss of n squared is necessary for every NIKE that has unique shared keys. And I'm only aware of one work that managed to get below this n squared, and this work achieved O of n security loss, but also gave a lower bound that shows that it's hard to get below this. In our work, we consider NIKE with flexible key length. So we show, we allow that the keys can get larger and grow with a number of users. And then we get the following result. And so given here by this black curve. So in particular, we can get our tightness as small as O of log n, but then our keys grow linear with the number of users. And we also give a lower bound that shows that this trade-off between key size and tightness is inherent. at least for a large class of Nikes that captures all group-based constructions. And of course, this is quite inconvenient to have these large keys. So we also looked into a bit of a different direction and thought what happens when we relax the security notion. And first of all, if you consider selective security, that means the adversary has to specify the challenge key pair even before seeing the public keys of the users, then this is very easy to achieve. And but we show that even in the stronger semi-adaptive security model, where the adversary sees first all the public keys and then specifies the challenge key pair, we can still achieve tightness. And moreover, we show that again, when we allow larger keys, we can get even stronger security notions. And the larger we make the keys, the later the adversary has to specify the challenge pair, still having a tight reduction. So to sum up our work, we considered the 3 desirable properties: tightness, adaptivity, and compact keys for Nike, and show that you can have any 2 of these properties, but unfortunately not all 3 of them. And more concretely, when you have adaptivity, you can also have a trade-off between tightness and compact keys. That was our first result. And when you have tightness, you can have a trade-off between adaptivity and compact keys. That was our third construction. Okay, that's it. I'm looking forward for any questions.
Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. One question is, one reason for tightness is that you can get better security by not making your group elements as large, for example. Can you compare that to an alternative is to just, but then you need many more group elements. An alternative is to use that space just to increase your security parameter. Do these schemes do better than, let's say, the naive approach where you just make bigger groups and analyze them with that?
Yeah, so I think so we did not look into this specifically, but I'm pretty sure if you want to achieve concrete efficiency, it's best to go with the Diffie-Hellman key exchange and just use larger groups to compensate for the additional security loss. Because, well, Diffie-Hellman key exchange itself is very efficient with just 1 group element. And yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Maybe you can mention any question left open. Network question is open. That's a question for me. Whether there are any nice open questions that we can forward.
People, do you think it's possible that
Yeah, maybe. Everyone, can you hear me?
Hardly. I think I can
Okay.
almost not.
Yeah, I was just asking if there are any nice open questions left for your work.
Yeah, so our lower bound. So first of all, the lower bound does not quite match the upper bound that we give. So for the trade-off between compact keys and tightness. So I think it would be interesting to figure out what to close this gap. And yeah, and another interesting work is our lower bound only works for Nikes where the shared key is computed as inner product between public and secret key, essentially. And that captures, yeah, as I said, all group-based Nikes that we know, but of course not all Nikes. And I think it would be interesting to get either a more general lower bound or maybe get some Nikes that bypass this lower bound.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, so we're back to physical now.
this one, right?
And no, first one. Okay. So the next talk of this session is titled Covert Learning, How to Learn with an Untrusted Intermediary. It's by Ran Canetti and Ari Kautner, and Ari will give the talk.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Ari Karchmer, and
Please forgive me. Before you begin, you will need to go into presentation mode.
Okay.
My apologies for interrupting. There's no good way to do it. I believe it's up at the top in the left corner. It looks like a screen with a play button on it.
Does that work?
There's a menu item that says slideshow in the center, but I don't think you're sharing the right screen.
I think we're not sharing that screen. Okay, so I'm gonna first present and then share. That's what you suggest? Not sure. So share screen. I will share this screen, right? Then. Is it better?
No, we online don't see that. So I think what you'll need to do is share the whole screen instead of an application.
Show the whole screen. Maybe this screen. Okay, I think we can do it. Is that now? No.
And then up at the top under display settings.
Display setting up at the top. Top for. Okay, now start again.
Basically, that was correct. You just needed to swap the presenter view.
Okay, let's try again then.
Mhm.
There. So that's what's correct. Just tell me where to go.
I think it's to the right of your cursor. Swap presenter view and slideshow. Try that.
Yeah, that works for. That would not work for us though. It's kind of weird.
Okay.
Yeah, we can remove the presenter.
Okay. Mhm.
Just need to figure out how to do this.
So they come. Kind of weird. Right?
Click presenter view. I can't see behind it. No, I'm trying to get behind it. She doesn't want this version.
To the right of that menu, there's something that says slideshow.
Get rid of that. I need to see behind this. Yeah. Thank you. There you go. Undo presenter view. No, just go and click on this show. Yeah. Click on new share. I think that should work. Where? Just click on new share. Yeah. But she doesn't want to see the present view. Yes, just click on start share. Here, click on share screen. And click on this one. Click on share.
Can she see? What does she see?
That's good for us online.
Okay. Yeah, I think it might have just been mine because mine had presenter view saved on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Do I leave it on the screen or go and present here?
I think it's fine.
You can go ahead.
Start and then if they have
Sorry. Because if I just advance slides, then it will not show each.
I see you're not gonna see the animation. That's the problem. I see. We have okay.
Oh, okay.
He wants to like click like it was a presentation.
We want this more actually. Oh, okay. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Sorry for the delay. So I'll be presenting the paper Covert Learning, How to Learn with an Untrusted Intermediary. It's joint work with Ron Canetti. So in the basic agnostic learning problem, a learner communicates with a membership oracle for an arbitrary Boolean function. The learner may query the function on any point with the goal of producing a hypothesis function within some fixed class that approximates the original function. Now, what if there is a computationally bounded eavesdropping adversary that can observe all the queries that the learner makes? Can the learner fashion the queries in a clever way that allows him to learn the function but prevent the eavesdropper from doing the same? Now, what if instead of a simple passive adversary, there is an intermediary who may view the queries and intercept and corrupt the responses? Now, can the learner complete the previous task while also detecting any interference from the intermediary? In this case, maybe the learner has also some access to random ground truth information about the function. In our work, we formalized this new notion of privacy in learning called covert learning, namely the guarantee that no eavesdropper learns anything about the learned function, nor any prior information that the learner has about this function. We do this using a simulation-based privacy definition, and also we give a verifiability guarantee that's adapted from work on interactive proofs for verifying machine learning of Goldwasser, Rothblum, Schaefer, and Yegudaya. And under this model, we provide formal descriptions of algorithms for several salient learning tasks like noisy parodies and polynomial decision trees. And we motivate the study of covert verifiable learning besides just theoretical interests with applications to real world kind of hostile learning settings like the secure outsourcing of chemical experiments and drug discovery, as well as producing robust model extraction attacks. Now, let me dive into a specific example of covert learning, first by introducing a problem many of you have probably seen before. So in this problem, the given inputs are m random n-bit vectors along with m binary labels. And it's guaranteed that for each binary vector and corresponding label, there's a parity function on n bits, such that the label is the parity of the random vector with probability 1/2 plus some small quantity tau. And the problem is to use these examples to find the secret parity S. Now, if you believe the well-known LPN hardness assumption, then this problem should also be computationally hard. But an important question is what happens if you can choose the binary vectors instead of them just being random? In this case, it's known how to efficiently find the secret parity in time polynomial n and 1/tau using the Goldberg-Levin algorithm. Now our question pertaining to this problem is what happens if you intend to run this learning algorithm in a hostile environment? In other words, a third party who observes all the queries made by some machine running the Goldberg-Levin algorithm. And in this case, the eavesdropper can also find the secret parity just by observing the data and running the rest of the Goldberg-Levin algorithm locally. Now, the Goldberg-Levin algorithm can be split into 3 phases: constructing some non-adaptive set of queries, performing those queries, and then post-processing the results. But the problem is that the queries themselves leak information. And one idea to mitigate this is to force the queries themselves to look random. Note that the original learning problem is computationally or thought to be computationally hard with random examples. So if we can make the queries look random, pseudo-random, then that's enough to obtain similar hardness. At least any entity can distinguish the pseudo-random queries. And a simple technique to do this is to mask or pad each query individually. And it turns out that we can construct these masks by using an LPN style distribution where each secret vector, here pictured in yellow, is used along with the results to then recover the secret parity using some natural homomorphic properties of LPN. And as previously mentioned, our work also considers a further twist to the problem. We're asking, what if there exists not only just an eavesdropper, but a more active adversarial intermediary who can actually modify the answers to these queries? And note, this is on top of the function that is to be learned is also an arbitrary function from the beginning. So it's kind of like a second level of adversarial noise. Then, so the question is, how can we fashion the queries in such a way to at least detect when this interference is happening? And to do this, we'll have to allow the algorithm to have access to some random uncorrupted examples in order to at least have some information to leverage against the intermediary. And we can extend our previous algorithm in a pretty simple way. So we can use a wrapper function that randomly executes the previous algorithm or queries for a section of ground truth examples. Then in the second case, we can check to make sure that the return answers are consistent with the ground truth. And this is shown in pseudocode on the slide. And if the labels are inconsistent, then we can abort as we have proof of interference. And note that because of the pseudo-randomness of the examples in the learning case, the intermediary cannot tell which case is which. So the idea is to repeat this process many times. And at the end, either the intermediary will be detected cheating or at least one iteration will be uncorrupt and suitable for learning. And so that concludes my presentation.
Yes, Daniel?
Can you say something about the general case? Are there functions that can be learned but cannot be learned privately, or do you believe that everything can be learned privately?
So a big open question is when there's a general kind of compiler that can take any learning algorithm and turn it into this type of private algorithm. And so I don't know exactly what is the extent to which this is possible. But in some sense, if you're using this technique that I described, where you kind of apply a transformation to the queries themselves, then the more complex the function is, the less kind of underlying homomorphism you might be able to extract out of that. So it's unclear exactly how far you can go. Yeah.
Okay, any other question? Okay, so let's thank Ari again.
That works for us online.
Okay, the last talk of the first session is titled Distributed Merkels Puzzles by Taidino and Ben Hasson, and Ben will give the talk.
Hi, I'm Ben, and I will talk to you about our paper, Distributed Merkels Puzzles. It's a joint work with Taidino. So first, a quick overview of the classic Merkels puzzles protocol. Alice and Bob want to communicate a secret key, and they use a random oracle to do so. Alice selects a set of square root of n random inputs and sends the image of the set to Bob. Bob selects a set of his own, and with high probability, since the sets are of size square root of the domain, those sets intersect, and then Bob sends an image from the intersection to Alice. Both of them know the pre-image of this image, and agree on it as their secret key. An adversary that wants to cover this secret key must make omega of n queries to the random oracle. This is a quadratic gap in query complexity, and this gap is also shown to be optimal. So we investigated another model for this key agreement protocol. In our model, there are M-honest players that form a fully connected network, meaning every pair of players can communicate, and there are no pre-existing secure channels. The goal is to allow each pair of players to agree on a secret key, and the adversary's goal is to recover any key. Here we also use the random oracle model. So a basic protocol in this model would be that fixing a constant number of secure links for each participant in a way that creates a connected graph. And then every pairwise key is sent on a path, encrypted on a path in this graph. The problem is that recovering a key is still as hard as doing so in classic Merkels puzzles, so we did not improve the complexity of the adversary. In our paper, we show a new distributed protocol in which every player makes T queries and communicates T bits, while the adversary has to perform n times T squared queries in order to recover some key. This gives us a super quadratic gap, which is better than the quadratic gap in the classic protocol. We also showed that this gap is optimal in this model, and we further show an extension to our protocol to handle with the semi-honest players that perform the protocol honestly, but share their information with an adversary. The basic idea in our protocol is that instead of fixing the secure links that each player has to achieve, we make arbitrary links. Each player queries T random queries to the random oracle, and when we set the domain size of the random oracle to be n times T squared, then each of the T queries, each set of queries of an honest participant intersects the n times T queries of the other participants with the high probability. The problem is to find out those intersections between players. A basic solution would be for every player to designate this role to one player, and all the players send their elements to this player, and he makes the matchmaking between the players that have intersections. This is this is problematic because the intermediate player has to make order of M times T communication. But we, in our protocol, we solve this by distributing the role of the matchmaker so that every player is assigned a range of images to be sent to him and makes the matchmaking between pairs of players. So in the paper, we describe the details of this protocol. We also show an optimality proof for this model, and we show an extension to our protocol to handle semi-honest participants. There are also several problems that are left open, like handling a greater fraction of adversarial players than is handled by our extension, and also experimenting with different security models, like, for example, where an adversary's goal is to cover more than one key. That's it.
Any questions? Yes.
Can you show that the communication is also optimal? Like the cross-site communication?
We did not try to do so, but it should. I don't have an answer for this right now.
It's starting with the two-party case. Yeah, that's an open question.
Any more questions?
Yeah, if you could just clarify the distinction between the basic model and the semi-honest model, what you mean when you say semi-honest model?
In the semi-honest model, the players, there are players that perform the protocol honestly. They make all the transactions like regular players, but they send key shares that are sent to them in the graph. They can share them with an adversary. So the connections that pass through them are not secure.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, so if not, let's thank Ben and all the speakers of this session. Break and we reconvene at 11. An announcement first.
The speakers of the next session, please send the slide.